Okay, so I only have a short one for you today. I've been busy working on things behind the scenes, so I'm just putting out this one, which essentially is just addressing one single statement made by Malaya Brooks Murray. I figure you probably know which one it is based on the thumbnail for this video. I did a longer video last week where I discussed the many water references that occur between Malaya, Daniel and Janie. And this one, I wanted to have another dig at this one, so let's just jump straight in.
It's been raining and they're probably soaking wet, but with the sun today, I'm hopeful that they are feeling warm.
It's been raining and they're probably soaking wet. But with the sun today, I'm hopeful that they're feeling warm. Where do you start with this? So, first of all, it is a shame that we can't see her body language, because the way she said this was odd. She's way too matter-of-fact. There's absolutely no emotion in her voice when she says it. She says it's been raining and they're probably soaking wet. But she's not expressing any concern for them. There's no comments like, I hope they found somewhere to shelter, or I hope they haven't ended up with hypothermia. She's not even trying to address the likely outcomes of them basically being out in the rain and becoming soaking wet. I mean, the way she's talking, you think she's talking about leaving a pair of shoes out on the deck overnight and it rained. You know, oh, I left my shoes out overnight and it rained and they're all wet now. Oh, well. And like I mentioned at the start of the video, we have this terminology again, talking about water. Here she's referring to them being soaking wet, which, it ties in with every other reference we've heard. And when you really consider the terminology, she doesn't say that they're probably cold and wet, or they probably got wet, or they probably got drenched. Instead, it's they're probably soaking wet. That's essentially referring to being as wet as possible. Soaking implies being immersed in water. When you talk about something soaking, you're talking about the water or the liquid getting into every single fibre. So here she is referring to them as being soaking wet, about as it is as wet as you can get. But we don't hear any concern over them being out all night in the freezing cold while they're soaking wet. And, at this time of year, if you look up the temperatures for May 1st and 2nd, when these children, or May 2nd and 3rd, when these children went missing, then you have overnight temperatures that are close to freezing. We're talking 1 degrees, 2 degrees Celsius. In Fahrenheit, that's a range of around, 33 to 35 degrees. It is damn cold. Factor in sopping wet, and she should be hysterical. Essentially, if they were out in the woods, these children have been out in near freezing temperatures overnight, apparently sopping wet from the rain. But she doesn't express any concern. She doesn't say that she's worried about if they would have survived overnight in those temperatures. And something that really stands out to me is that she says they're probably soaking wet, as in they are. Not they probably were soaking wet, or they probably got soaking wet, but they probably are. They're probably soaking wet. They are currently, at this moment, probably soaking wet. And this is alongside a statement that, but with the sun today, I'm hopeful that they're feeling warm. Well, if you're hopeful that they're feeling warm, wouldn't you also be hoping that they've dried out somewhat? You wouldn't be saying that they are probably soaking wet. You would imagine they've dried out a bit. And I mean, it really is odd to say that she's hoping they're feeling warm, because I would expect her to be referring to them being out in the rain like that, to then be saying that she's hopeful that they've managed to become dry and warm, or that they've dried off. But instead, she says they're probably soaking wet, meaning that at that point in time, in her mind, they're still soaking wet, despite the sun. So her saying that she hopes they are warm is in agreement with that. Because if she says they probably are soaking wet, then to say that she hopes they've dried out wouldn't match. So in her mind, wherever they are, they're still soaking wet, and she's just hoping that wherever they are soaking wet, that they're at least warm. And then you have this disturbing fact of her pausing before she says warm. It's like her brain is wrangling with the notion of them being warm because it's not a possibility. It's an untruth. You've heard me say this a million times. The brain does not like to lie. She couldn't get that sentence out in full. She couldn't get it out fluently because she knows that they can't be warm, in my opinion. I believe this statement proves to us that she knew when she did this interview that those children were deceased. She struggled to finish the sentence. She struggled to say the word warm because her brain was basically putting on the brakes and going, that's a lie, and I don't like lies, don't say it. But you know, the whole statement is really wooden. It doesn't ring true. Where's the concern over them being out overnight in sopping clothes, apparently? Where's the hope that they've managed to get dry, or that maybe they found shelter and stayed dry? You know, why isn't she afraid that they might have succumbed to hypothermia in those near freezing temperatures? Why is there absolutely no sign of distress or concern in her words? You would expect a mother whose children have been out overnight in the rain to be absolutely beside themselves. There's no sense of urgency. She's not saying they need to find them soon because they might need medical attention because they could be hypothermic. They've been out in this weather. She doesn't say that. She's more concerned about bitching about an Amber Alert, even though there's no sign of them having been abducted. While, you know, in this part of the interview, it sounds like she's convinced that they're in the woods. And where's the concern about the fact that if they are in the woods, they've had nothing to eat for the last 24 hours? Wouldn't you be concerned about wild animals? And, you know, they're 4 and 6 years old. Wouldn't you be concerned about them being afraid? I mean, there's probably a good chance that they're scared of the dark. But even if they're super brave kids and they're not scared of the dark, wouldn't they be scared that they were out in the woods, lost at night time? Honestly, when you listen to just this one statement, you can't help but feel that she knew that her children weren't out there in the woods. Hence the complete utter lack of concern for their welfare. And also the pause before saying warm, because she knows they're deceased and they won't be warm. And, you know, most disturbingly, she says there, as in they're probably soaking wet, they're still wet, despite the sun. Meaning either they didn't have the body heat to help them to dry off, or they're immersed in water somewhere. Now, I know I've spoken about this in other videos, but I know that they've had divers in First of all, when it comes to divers, basically they're doing it blind. They're doing it by feel, especially in these kind of lakes in that area. So unless they are right on top of something, they are not going to find it. But not only that, it sounds like they focused on Lansdowne Lake. And I can tell you that's really not likely to be the location where those children are. Because I showed you this on a map in another video, and I'll see if I can find that map again. Essentially, from where the house is, to access Lansdowne Lake, they're going to either have to go past someone's house, or they're going to have to go along a track that is really close to Gerlock Road. Even if they went to the far end of Lansdowne Lake, they're still having to basically go past someone's house. So I've actually suggested that the area they should be looking at is closer to Lansdowne Road. And since I did that video, I've discovered that that's actually where Daniel's father lives, out that way. And that's apparently where they found the piece of blanket that was planted. So in terms of searching, I'm still in this area, which is behind the house, but can be accessed via backtracks, basically. You've got Lansdowne Road there on the left-hand perimeter. You've got the train tracks. That entire area could be accessed from their property without passing any houses, without passing along any roads, and there's many waterways. I honestly believe they need to be getting in some experienced searchers who can get in there with sonar. But, that's just an aside from what I'm talking about here. The whole point of this video is Malaya's statement. They're probably soaking wet, as in they still are soaking wet, despite the sunshine. And she hopes that they're warm. She's not hoping that they've dried off. She hopes that they're warm. And the complete utter lack of concern. This has got to be one of the most telling statements from Malaya.